Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So we are continuing with Mishnah 5, which yesterday, the first part of the Mishnah spoke about inviting the poor into your home, providing for them, giving them a job better than in your home. If you are hiring someone, hire someone who's in need, hire a Jewish person in need. So that was yesterday's class. And then I'm going to put it on the share here. The rest of the Mishnah first glance seems to be talking about something totally different and seemingly politically incorrect. The Mishnah says, so we had, again, the first part was that your house should be open wide and the poor should be members of your household. And then it says, V'altar besicha im ha'isha, and do not talk too much, talk excessively with, here it says with women, literally it's the woman. Bi'ishto amru, they're talking about your own wife. Kal v'chomer be'eshes chavero, certainly you should not be excessively talking to someone else's wife. Mikan amru chachamim, and from here the sages said, Kol zaman she'adam mar besicha im ha'isha, when a person is going to when a man is going to excessively talk with a woman, gorem ra'al atzma, he's going to cause trouble for himself. Ubotel midivrei Torah, he will end up not studying Torah. He will be missing out during that time, wasting time from studying Torah. Besofo yorish Gehinnom, and in the end, he's going to end up basically inheriting Gehenna, which is translated here as hell. So pretty tough talk. One of the things that we have to always be careful about is when we see phrases like this, it's like, whoa, sounds good, but you got to look at it a little more carefully. And the commentaries that discuss it are commentaries from a long time ago, for 1,000 years ago, Rashi, 500 years ago, etc., who lived in times where women did not have the equality they have today. Yet, we'll see that their commentaries are going to explain this in a light where we'll call it more politically correct, which makes sense because the Torah's view is, of course, it does value women. On the other hand, the Torah does recognize there is an issue. There are two main issues, I guess, that would be going through here. One is the idea of frivolity and having too much interaction between men and women, especially when they're not married to each other, then it could lead to issues. And second is just in terms of what are you doing with your time? What are you talking about? When you're having conversations, what are your conversations about? So and also the context of this Mishnah is following the idea of let your house be open wide and let the poor be members of your household, in which case it is talking about making everybody feel good and welcome in your house. So it's not going to be then all of a sudden going the opposite direction. So one of the ideas that's explained, first of all, is that the word ha'isha, as it seems to indicate, is more specifically to a person's wife rather than someone else. And one understanding that connects it to the previous part is that someone may actually feel that, if we have a lot of guests in the house, we don't have private time. We want to have private time between the couple, and the more people that you invite, the less private time you have. So therefore, I don't want to invite guys. So Rabbi Yosef, he says, you could talk later. Invite poor people to your house, make them feel comfortable. That's one way of approaching it. Another explanation is that generally speaking, when it comes to hosting, who's going to end up doing most of the work? Generally speaking, the wife is going to do most of the work, so she's going to have the pressure of it. So don't go speaking so much about inviting guests in a way that's going to put pressure on your wife and make her work harder. Then you can invite guests and we don't have to make the biggest spread in the world. Whatever your family would have eaten, they can eat the same thing. We don't have to make the extra work just because we want to have more people at our table. That's a couple of approaches. Another angle is looking at the words al tarbe sicha. First of all, al tarbe means not excessively. Doesn't mean don't talk. It means don't overdo it. And sicha, which is talk, is a word for use for kind of like talk that's not such important talk, kind of like idle talk. And then Tosfos Yom Tov, one of the commentaries, says it means like sicha b'teila. You just shooting the breeze. You're talking about nonsense. And actually Rav Hirsch Rav Hirsch, who lived in the 1800s, he points out it would be to look at this Mishnah as viewing women in a negative light. He says that doesn't make any sense because, first of all, we have many places in the Talmud, especially where it tells the husband to pay attention to his wife. There's like one about, bend down, assuming he was taller, bend down and give your ear. Um, but also, and to listen to her advice. And additionally, the Mishnah just taught us about being kind, giving charity, hospitality, and it's coming from the home. So obviously that is also going to be dependent on the couple, both of them working together. So he says that a person who, if you really respect, if a man really respects his wife, he doesn't want to just talk about nonsense. He wants to hear serious conversation. He wants to hear her opinions, right? He wants to know, what does she have to say about something. If you don't respect somebody, I don't really care what you say. If I do respect you, then I value your opinion and I want to hear what you have to say on important matters. It's not Maybe it's nice to have a conversation about, what the senators did last night, but that's not a high-level conversation. And if that's all you're talking about, then that doesn't have a great meaning, right? So, whether your opinion is whether they're going to make the playoffs or not, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having conversations that have meaning and depth, and listening to those. That's the kind of conversation you should be having, and having conversations that are just, wasting time. That's not to have excessive conversations like that is not respectful even of the relationship in a way. But if that's all you're talking about, obviously you need to have a little digression to have a good time as well. The other Rashi points out, when Rashi from the year 10, the 1000s, Rashi says that the big issue here, as is referred to later, is bittul Torah, that the more time you spend on frivolities, the less time you're going to be spending on studying Torah. And therefore, what we're talking about here is small talk with no purpose, and that time is better used for Torah study. Now, obviously, there is a need for a certain amount of small talk as well in the relationship. So we're not saying don't have any, but don't be excessive about it. The other thing Rashi brings down is that man comes home and he starts telling his wife about his day, and oh, you know what this guy did to me? And all of a sudden, he's telling Lashon Hara. He's telling something about some negative thing that someone else did to him. So first of all, that really, just because you're married to each other does not give you the right to say Lashon Hara about someone else. Okay? Sometimes maybe it's excused for various reasons, but generally speaking, being someone's spouse does not give license for talking Lashon Hara, so you shouldn't come home and just tell about things that happened that other people did that are wrong. Secondly, Rashi says that what might happen is guy's going to come and say what this person did to him, and then the wife is going to be so incensed to how dare that person do that, she's going to go to the guy's wife and start berating her, and because she's defending her husband. And all you're doing is you're creating more arguments. So you have to be careful what you say when you're having a conversation. Don't have conversations that are going to cause the other person to get upset and defend you on your behalf and create another argument, as well as the concept of that one should not be feeling that there's a license for Lashon Hara when you have a close relationship with someone else. That is not true. It's the only possible would be is if you need to let off your steam and this is a safe outlet, maybe there is excusable. But just for the sake of telling what someone else did, for sure, that is not something a husband should be telling his wife, and vice versa, a wife should not be telling the husband either. And I think we will hold it here. But just the last part of the Mishnah was not Rabbi Yossi talking. That seems to be an add-on that the sages did about, that it doesn't only apply to a guy's wife, but it applies to someone else. That was not his original statement. That was an add-on.